Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today I've got a few vinyl records to show you that I've picked up in recent weeks at car boot sales. First one is Tonton Macoute. I'll just show you the sleeve. And the record, it's on the label RCA Neon, which was a short-lived label from the early 70s. I think they mainly issued sort of new bands, progressive rock bands. It's pretty good condition. And did I say how much it was? That was a 20 pence. I'll just get rid of that. That was 20 pence at a car boot sale. It's sort of jazzy, progressive rock. There's a guy in the band that plays alto and tenor sax, flute and clarinet. It's let down by really poor vocals. It's listenable instrumentally, but overall it's quite an anonymous record, sort of very typical of sort of third division progressive rock from the early 70s. And next up, Clarence, Frogman Henry, and I think this will be a privately pressed record because it's on the CFH label. It includes a re-recording of his first hit in the 1950s. I'll just show you the back as well. Ain't Got No Home. That was released back in the 50s on Chess and got covered many years later by the band on Moondog Matinee. He's a singer and pianist, very much steeped in the New Orleans tradition, and there's the artists that appear with him on the record. Next up, a band that doesn't need any introduction, double album of Steely Dan's greatest hits, particularly like the photo on the inner sleeve. And there's the tracks. I think this is possibly the best compilation, certainly that came out in the vinyl era. It's got tracks from the albums from 1972 to 78. So that's Can't Buy a Thrill, Countdown to Ecstasy, Pretzel Logic, Katie Lied, The Royal Scam and Asia. And there's one previously unreleased track on the album, the track Here at the Western World. And this one's on the Topic label from 1977, Battlefield Band. Just show you the back of that. And the Topic label, UK folk label of course. I think the Battlefield Band had released an album prior to this, but this was their debut on Topic. Scottish folk band, and they had a lineup at this time of fiddle, bouzouki, whistle and organ. The Charlie Daniels Band, A Decade of Hits. There's the tracks. I think he was a lot bigger in America than here in the UK. Here in the UK he's remembered for The Devil Went Down to Georgia, but in America he sort of crossed over, I know, from a country audience to a southern rock audience, and there's a couple of tracks on here which I particularly liked, which I'd not heard before. The South's Gonna Do It Again and Long Haired Country Boy. So it's basically the decade of hits covers the period 1973 to 1983. It's a very nice condition, nothing particularly special, but yeah, glad to have that. I got this one really cheap. Roy Orbison, as it says on the cover, original recordings, contains material never before available on LP. It's on the Monument label. It came out in 1989, and it brings together some of the rare singles, A's and B sides that have never been on LP, as well as the B sides of some more popular songs, again which had never been on LP. So It's quite a nice cover as well. I've never actually seen that record before, so I was quite pleased to pick that one up. From one I was quite pleased to pick up, one that I probably should have left in the racks. I had a vague notion of who Gato Barbieri was, and I hadn't heard of Dollar Brand, but this is Confluence. For those that don't know, Dollar Brand, he was a South African pianist and cellist, and Gato Barbieri is an Argentinian tenor saxophonist. This was recorded as a duo recording in Milan in 1968, and it's pretty pretentious music, I think. We're into sort of free jazz territory here. The first track, The Yellow and the Wild Rose, which lasts more than 14 minutes, that is a really hard listen. If you can get through that, then I must admit I struggled a bit with that one. It's Barbieri's fondness for really having a screeching saxophone, which starts to grate after a while. I'm not really selling this one to you, but I think it's not one of my better purchases, and in retrospect, but I should have left it in the racks, I think. And this was another impulse buy, so I knew the name Rabnokes. To show you the back. I knew the name Rabnokes because he'd been in the very first lineup of Stealers Wheel, but left before the first album, and he's been around on the English folk scene for many years. This was a really pleasant surprise. It was recorded in Nashville in, I suspect, about 73, 74, 1973 it says, and a bit of money was spent on this record by the record label, because it was produced by Elliot Mazer, and Branch was a radio hit here in the UK at the time. And talking of Stealers Wheel, it's got Jerry Rafferty and Joe Egan on their very distinctive backing vocals, and Joe Egan and Jerry Rafferty also contribute a song themselves, Clear Day, and they provide backing vocals on that. It's as I say, it's a very enjoyable album, and it's got the Memphis Horns on some of the track, and session musicians as well, including Tommy Cogbill on bass, Kenneth Buttrey on drums. I'll just show you the back so you can take note. And next up, this was a very nice purchase. Some nice liner notes on the back. See if that picks up all right. Leadbelly, legendary, of course, American folk singer. Amazingly, he was born in 1885. So at the time of these recordings, in 1940, he was already well into his 50s, and these were his first recordings in a major record label's studio. They were recorded for RCA, and there's half of the tracks are recorded with the Golden Gate Jubilee Quartet, and the other half are solo recordings from the same session, and just some absolute classic performances on here. I would say that is one of the greatest recording sessions of all time. And next up, this is an album by Harvey Andrews, writer of songs, which was released on the Cube label in the early 1970s. He has a voice in a beautiful pure high register, which reminds me a bit of like an English Tim Buckley, but sadly he doesn't have the charismatic looks of Tim Buckley, so that probably was reflected in the poor record sales at the time. The stellar backup from a number of excellent musicians at the time. So you've got Rick Wakeman, who plays piano on a couple of tracks. Ralph McTell appears on most of the songs, playing acoustic guitar. You've got Dave Mattacks, Cozy Powell, Danny Thompson, and so yeah, very impressive lineup, and a good songwriter. But sadly, he's not as popular as he should have been. I got this for a couple of quid. It's an EP. Know nothing about the ABS, but I got this because it's on a label which I've heard of, Vinyl Solution. They used to have a record shop in London in the 1980s. I went in a couple of times and can't remember his name now, but the bassist from the Barracudas was working there at the time, and they were really into the Australian bands that were coming out, guitar bands, and this came inside. I don't know if that's going to pick up, but that's some of the Australian 7-inch singles they were selling at the time for, it's getting a bit closer, £2.50 each. Some absolute classics there. As for the album, the EP, it's nothing special, but I wasn't expecting it to be anything special. It's sort of late 80s frantic pop punk in a similar style to, say, Mega City 4, Senseless Things, Midway Still. I think they were all around that time. It's okay, so I'm quite happy to have bought it. And this was one I played last night. It was a bit dusty and clogged up my needle a bit, but it plays quite well. Boz Scaggs and the album Silk Degrees, sort of mid-70s pop soul, massive hit at the time, hit album. I think it's let down really by quite anonymous vocals. But sound-wise, it sounds like a mixture of Little Feat and Steely Dan, very sophisticated backing, and I think that's down to the presence of Fred Tackett from Little Feat, and you've also got a couple of session musicians who went on to be in Toto, and they at that time were playing with Steely Dan. So that sort of sound has worked through into the band, and I think Joe Wissett's production is very warm and radio friendly, and it sounds pretty good on vinyl. For me, the only thing that lets it down are the sort of slow ballads at the end of side 1 and side 2, so we reduced to 8 good tracks and 2 so-so tracks. I love Jump Street, some great slide guitar on that one by Les Dudek. And obviously the singles, which everyone still remembers, Lido Shuffle, Lowdown, are great as well. And don't know how much I paid for this, probably just a couple of quid. So, and that's the latest selection. I do have a pile of other recent purchases from Car Boot Sales vinyl. I may show some of those. I just feel like I'm getting into the trap of buying stuff that I don't particularly like just because it's priced reasonably and is in reasonable condition, and I need to just be careful that I don't finish up with a whole load of records that are going to be included in a vinyl purge. Talking of which, I may do another vinyl purge video soon as well, as I work my way through the collection trying to weed out some of the stuff that doesn't really deserve to be there. But that's it for today, and enjoy your week, and I'll be back in a few days' time. Bye for now.